channel to our Q&A part one, where I will answer all of your questions about history and social studies for the next hour or so here at the Friendly Neighborhood History channel, where we do history in a friendly, neighborly manner, 24/7, 365 or 366 days a year. And today we remember the fallen, with the background being the Wounded Knee Massacre, when the American Army killed hundreds of Sioux natives who were fighting them. It's one of the last major Indian standoffs between the natives and the federal government before they were brought. Most of the natives were transferred to the reservation system, and in just a show of force and exaggerated violence, the American government killed hundreds of natives. Dozens of them were women and children. It's one of the worst massacres in American history, and definitely another dark chapter in the relationship between Americans and natives. So, welcome to the Friendly Neighborhood History channel, where we do history in a friendly, neighborly manner, 24/7, 365 or 366 days a year. And for the next hour or so, I will be answering all of your questions about history or social studies, so you can get a historian to answer that for you. So welcome, and a very happy Friday to you all. I hope you are enjoying your weekend and getting ready to celebrate and cut loose and enjoying your new year overall. But yes, very good to have you here at the Friendly Neighborhood History channel. We usually go live every Friday and Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern. So we go for an hour to answer all of your questions. So we'll be doing this tomorrow again. And then we also go live with our live stream lecture, which you can vote on here on YouTube for Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern. So join us for that. She's getting shot. I think there's natives shooting back at the federal troops who are shooting at them, and this is the Wounded Knee Massacre. That is my background today. But yeah, this is the Friendly Neighborhood History channel. I've had a long and exhausting week, but I'm here with you to answer all of your questions about history and social sciences. It's Richard Nixon's 113th birthday. Well, I guess I'll have to do my daily, when I do my daily birthday videos, I'll have to mention that. We'll have to talk about Richard Nixon, so. Welcome. Feel free to follow us on social media. Do I teach American history, global history? I teach history all the time to you guys, so. Yeah. Yeah, so, what else was I going to say? Yeah, welcome to our Q&A, where you can ask me anything you'd like about history and social studies, and start off your weekend the right way here at the Friendly Neighborhood History channel. Every Friday and Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern, and Sundays at 4 p.m. Eastern is the live stream lecture. So, drop a comment, question, topic in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer it. Please like and subscribe. It helps the channel grow. Of course, if you want to give a super chat or become a member, that also helps the channel. I really appreciate that, but no pressure whatsoever. Again, a very, very happy Friday to you as you start your weekend off with us. We really appreciate it. Oh yeah, we also have social media available. We have Substack, where you can read my articles, Patreon, where you can get bonus content, TikTok, where there's extra stuff that you won't find here, but there is stuff from here that you won't find on TikTok, so follow us on both. Why did Bill leave the Discord? Thoughts on the mother that ICE killed. I mean, I'm not going to comment on it. It's too soon. There's still a lot of outstanding information about it, and I'm a history platform. I'm not going to be talking about current affairs and the political mess that the world is in right now, with the ICE killings in Minnesota and Portland, Oregon. A lot of people are really, really concerned about the presence there and want them to leave. It's very tragic, obviously, when any human being is killed, whatever the issue is. So I'm not going to take a stance on that one way or another. If you want me to give an analysis as historical as possible on a particular political or religious perspective, consider giving a super chat. But I'm here to answer questions about history and social studies, so if you're in for all of that, if you want to talk about social sciences with me, I would love to do that. Please like and subscribe and become a Friendly Neighborhood Historian. It's as easy as all of that. We do this every Friday and Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern, and we have a Sunday live stream lecture at 4 p.m. Eastern. We also have daily content available, short videos and long-form videos that come out twice a week, usually on Mondays and Fridays. So, welcome. Good to see everybody. A happy Friday to you all and a happy weekend. Hopefully your 2026 is going well so far. Yes, it's me again. You clicked onto my stream to watch it, but it's me again. Unfortunately, I had to pop up into your life. If God is Jews, does that mean that they won? I don't even think in Judaism God is Jewish, but okay. I am not funded by Crystal Geyser, but I like it. It tastes good. Let me see. My buddy Obama. Who? My buddy Obama. What do you mean going to prison? So, salutations, Doctor Who, what, where, great to see you. We've got friendly neighborhood historians from all over the world that join us on this live stream to ask questions or just enjoy the good vibes that we have. And hopefully, if you're new, welcome. It's great to have you here. I'm so glad that you've chosen your Friday to your beginning of your weekend to spend with us here at the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel. Hello, Ming Lang. Don't eat Indian food. I have to replace my entire plumbing system. I love Indian food, and I've never had to replace my plumbing system because of India. I think you just got some bad masala. Why isn't water not free in the U.S.? Why is water not free in the U.S.? I mean, people pay for different types of water that they can get. I don't know where water is really free. And yes, follow our Patreon, our TikTok, and our Substack. Hars and my wonderful moderator, Hars, is holding down the chat. Hars, what happened to Bill? Why did Bill leave that? So, do you know about the Endicott era? Oh my goodness. I've heard the name before. Discuss it a little bit, Colton, and maybe it'll jog my memory. Look at those lips. Yes, my lips are best served when I'm talking about history. Otak is joining us from Norway. We have Harry, my moderator, who's from Great Britain. We have people from all over the world joining us, which is also awesome. Yeah, and that's true. I guess water is free when you take it from the ground. This water wasn't free. I had to pay like $8 for a pack of these at the store. I don't know who's winning that. Do you know anyone from the Epstein list? Yes, Megatron, you were on the Epstein list. I am not famous enough, large enough of a platform, or important enough to know anyone personally who was on the Epstein files or from Epstein's list. So, but welcome to the Friendly Neighborhood channel. Yes, I love this tie. It's a navy blue contrasting with my orange rust. We've got someone from Indiana in the house. That's great to see. It's great to have you here. Hello. Oh, Bear, you're behind me? Okay, well, make sure to give me a nice big bear hug. He interrupted us and wanted to talk about something else in regards to the War of 1812. I didn't, and I was always trying to reel it back. Okay. People like me that have wells do that? Yeah, that's true. People get wells and groundwater all the time. You can't drink the tap water in Norway. Why can't you drink the tap water in Norway? Oh, by the way, Hars, my moderator, has an emoji of Tsar Nicholas I of Russia because he is a member. So emojis, early releases, bonus content, bonus lives, those are all available for members if you want to become a member and support the channel. But you can become a friendly neighborhood historian as easy as liking and subscribing. And my background, by the way, is the Wounded Knee Massacre in 1891 when the Americans took it out on the Lakota Indians and killed hundreds of them, including dozens of women and children, in one of the worst massacres in American history. Does Europe need another crusade? And if not, how does it deal with the Islam problem? So the Crusades are a series of holy wars that the Europeans did to reconquer the Holy Land, what is now Israel and Palestine, in other areas in the Levant as well, Tripoli and areas like that, Antioch. But they also had crusades that reconquered Spain and took it back from the Muslims that had invaded and conquered Spain several centuries before. A lot of people feel, especially on the right, that there needs to be like this new crusade against Islam because Islamic immigration is surging all throughout Europe and there's a huge cultural clash. I don't know if a violent war full of murder would be the solution. Cultural conflict and clashing happens with migration. It's just how migration has been all throughout history. My favorite period in history is probably 19th and 20th century European history with a particular emphasis on Russia. I am a Russian historian by trade, but I have a master's and bachelor's in history, but I studied all types of history, and I love almost all periods and all groups of history that I've studied. No Indians lived in the North before the Civil War. Many Indians lived in the North before the Civil War. Many Indians lived in the South. Many Indians owned slaves. Many Indians fought for the Confederacy. What do you know about the Battle of Svitskadzvar? Not much. Let me see. Bill didn't like how I was feeling. Really comment back to what me and Harry was talking about. He eventually didn't like how I said something he said never existed. He called me childish, acted like our discussion was a game, and he left. He didn't say a word to anyone. Oh, well. That's unfortunate. Do you think the Visigoths were cool? The Visigoths were really cool. They were the ones that actually owned Spain before the Muslims conquered it in this early 8th century. Um, they were one of the groups, one of the barbarian groups. Goths were an old term to refer to anyone from the Germanic regions that were outside of Rome's imperial borders, the Western Roman Empire. Those barbarian groups were extremely successful in conquering and dividing up the Roman Empire after its fall in 476, at least in the West. Um, yes, I have big lips. Wow, incredible. Listen to what's coming out of them and what they actually look like. Um, so, and you want to be the new Charlie Kirk? No, I'm not a political pundit. I'm not doing this for politics. I'm not making political points. I'm talking about history and social studies. That's my passion. That's what I love to do. GK, great to see you. GK, thank you for becoming a member. They couldn't even survive winter. That's not quite what happened, but okay. Um, Henry, make me a mod. You mean Hars? You only read Jewish version of history in the States. Huh? Jewish version? What's the Jewish version of history? I didn't know the Jews had a version of American history. Why do we go from horses as transportation method and planes and all kinds of crazy inventions less than 200 years only? What happened before that? The exponential development of the technological revolution that occurred within the Industrial Revolution basically meant that there was an exponential growth in technological access to transportation, communication, and things like that. You get the railroad, you get steamships, you get the Pony Express. That's an extremely amazing system of transportation of mail in America by horse. It's basically useful for only a couple of years, and then it's basically obsolete because of the trains. So the truth of the matter is, the development in the last 200 years of technology exponentially outweighs the development of technology in the previous 4,000 years. And the development in the information age and the digital age of the last 30 years in technology outweighs the developments exponentially of the technological revolution of the last 200 years. So we're growing at another exponential growth rate now thanks to technology, AI, and computers and phones. No, I don't take anything personally. Um, uh, yeah, I am not it, dude. I don't know what it that is, man, but okay. When did Rome versus Judea start and why? There are several different conflicts in which the Romans one of their generals named Pompey the Great, an opponent of Julius Caesar, incorporated the region of Judea into ending the Hasmonean kingdom and incorporated it into the Roman Republic, eventually becomes part of the Roman Empire, and was basically always trying to get free of the Romans and retain its independence. There was a lot of cultural conflict between the polytheistic Romans and the monotheistic Jews. The most notable revolution was the Jewish revolt of 66 AD that was destroyed by the Flavians, the future emperors Vespasian and his son Titus, who destroyed the Jewish temple. So that's probably what you're referring to. But there were conflicts well before then and a lot of cultural tension and fights. So do you know the difference between the United States and America? Yes, America refers to the continent, and in fact it refers to the entire Western Hemisphere except for the Caribbean and some other islands. But basically, the West Indies, as they are called, people in the United States calling America America are just doing it for the convenience sake. America can refer to Canada, it can refer to Mexico, and it can refer to Argentina. What is the Dutch influence on the United States? The Dutch were some of the earliest colonizers of the American colonies, and created a strong subculture within New York and New Jersey, which they colonized before the British ever showed up. Which is why there was a large amount of Dutch Reformed and Dutch people living in New York, New Amsterdam as it was called, before the English eventually take it over in the mid 16th century or 17th century. In fact, the Roosevelts, Franklin and Teddy Roosevelt and Eleanor Roosevelt, were one of those rich, aristocratic Dutch families that had become landed gentry and settled in America for centuries. The Dutch were here before the vast majority of American colonies. The Dutch settled in New York really in the 1610s and 20s. So, So you know the real history of the Aborigines of America and what their nationality is, please don't say Native American. Well, Native Americans are various different groups of nations. Nations are compilations of different tribes, which are usually named because of the languages they speak. The Iroquois, the Algonquin, these are the languages. They were named after the languages they spoke. Navajo, same thing, and Sioux. But there are individual tribes that comprise whole nations of Native Americans. Thank you for subscribing. Really appreciate it. Is Islam a religion of takeover instead of coexist with other religions? Any religion can have the power to do that and to be that. Islam, particularly in its most radical form, is a very aggressive religion, and it was aggressive in its start. And I don't mind talking about the aggressive conquest of Christianity in medieval Europe at all, or the shortcomings of the Crusades or Inquisition. There's nothing wrong with that at all. The whataboutism isn't fair. My job is as a historian. It's not religious at all. I don't share my religious or political takes on this channel. My job is to talk about history. It's just that Islam started with a lot of conquest, and I see a lot of people who just want to ignore that Islam started that way, or that radical Islam, they want to pretend that radical Islam is a completely different religion, and it really isn't. So, das Vedanya to you, Fat Man Rolling. Good to see you. Using a little bit of Russian on me. Flavian is a bad word. Flavian refers to the Roman family, Flavius, Vespasianus, who is the general Vespasian, who is the emperor who built the Colosseum, his son Titus, and his other son Domitian, who ruled the Roman Empire from 69 AD to 96 AD. Thanks again. Yes, everybody loves the lips today for some reason. So, what would you advise a beginner to start with in learning history? When I was young, because I've been learning about history since I was a little kid, and I've been obsessed with it ever since I was a little kid. I've been a savant with it since I was a little kid. But I learned about American history first because I was an American, and that's where you get all the easy information. Find something that's easy to access and that you like, and that's easy for you to learn about, and go from there. And history has branches and connections across the wazoo. You cannot learn the history of Europe without learning about the Americas or about Africa. You cannot learn the history of China without learning about Japan and Russia. So you will find access ways to all sorts of different types of history when you learn about history that's easily available to you. So America in the north, south part, and adjoining lands are all considered America. To some extent, the Americas, we call them. There's a difference between a colloquial nomenclature that we use for the United States when we just call it America, and to refer to, besides, Americans believe they're in charge of the entire Western Hemisphere. So there's that, but also that there's an official, you're trying to get me on a technicality, basically. Interesting, you're Native American and German? Fascinating. Yes, Native Americans came from the East End Indies and from Asia, across the Bering Strait, Siberia, other areas around there. Let me see. I am Navajo in German. Interesting. What do you know about Western Mexico? Like Baja Cali, which was originally part of California because Spain owned all of it, and then Mexico barely got its independence right before the United States took California away from them. Not a huge amount in terms of the context of history. I know that Pancho Villa did many of his raids in the 1910s, attacking across the border into the United States, and almost caused the United States to go to war with Mexico right when they went to war with Germany in World War II, or what you call World War I, and what many people consider to be the Great War, or the First World War. I respect you, but why are you dressed like an Austrian painter's youth? Oh God, no. You should watch my live stream lecture from last week. I despise the Austrian painter. I do formal wear on the channel. That's why I'm dressed like this. And a nice tie and shirt combination. Can't say it. Yeah, I get it. I guess it's the brown shirt, but yeah. Where was Nikola Tesla? He was Serbian. He was from Serbia. So do you know the nationality of Aborigines of America? Do I know their genetic DNA matches? Most of them were Asiatic. And that's what most people believe. What would you advise a beginner? I already answered that. I'm trying to answer your questions. I'll try to get there. Andrew Jackson was a Native American. People who were born on reservations are not Native Americans. Well, Andrew Jackson, if he said that, was wrong. No hide Seminole. Interesting. America is a European word. Well, it's the word, it's named after Amerigo Vespucci, who proved that Columbus had not discovered India. That's why the continents are not named Columbia, because Columbus believed he was in India. Native Americans came from Asia and Siberia through the Bering Strait, or am I wrong? Generally, that's considered to be correct. I don't know what you mean, Marshman. Do you get your lips done? No, this is all God. There you go. Indians came from what they called Turtle Island. They considered this to be Turtle Island. That's what some of the First Nations people considered their lands in Canada to be, Turtle Island. America is not a European word. It is an ancient Berber word. The Native Americans did not call this land America. They did not refer to it as America. So trying to connect them to the Africans is just not going to work. So what have you learned about humans from history? Human nature is malleable at the edges. It'll change based off of a context and what people do, and that includes really good and really bad things. But at the center, we are generally the same, and we will act in similar patterns if we don't pay attention. And so we do fall into the trap of we learn from history that we never learn from history, like Hegel said. So, Zactitas Jalisco. I don't know a huge amount that dude, but I know a decent amount, but not a huge amount about that particular part of Mexico. The Berber word for Morocco is Amaruca. Yes, that's incredible. It has nothing to do with Amerigo Vespucci. So what overarching theory of humans have you learned? I answered that already. Pacific Islanders and Siberians are basically the people who would become Native Americans. Inuits and Eskimos are an example of that. Thank you, Eric. The root word of America is Amer, also spelled Emir, an Arabic word. So if you want to go really technical with this, Amerigo Vespucci is Italian. The Italian and Spanish languages are based in Latin. There is a similarity there. Spanish, which the Spanish colonized a huge portion of Central and South America, as well as parts of what's now the United States. Spanish is a language based on Latin, but also heavily influenced by Muslim conquest and Arabic conquest in Spain, Al-Andalus, between 710 and 1492. So there is actually some similarity between Spain and the Middle East that the rest of Europe really doesn't have. But that's not why it's named that, Moorish Man. I know you want it to be that way, but it's not. Why is Greenland Denmark? Oh, so this is a good question that has a lot to do with current political affairs and stuff, and I don't want to talk about the politics too much. If you want me to go into the analysis of why Trump wants Greenland, you can give a super chat and I'll explain it as objectively as I can. But the Danes own. I think it's crossed hands between different Norwegian countries, but obviously the ancient connection is the Vikings colonizing Denmark or Greenland, and the Danes believe they have the greatest claim, and they were the ones who eventually got a hold of it. I forget when they. I think it was maybe in the 1300s or over 1200s. Who do you like tonight? Indiana, or Oregon? Not sure. Not a college football guy, but I do love football. Hello, my name is Alex. Are you a person who answers historical questions? Yes. Hello, my name is Friendly History, and I answer history questions. If they have facial hair, they're at least 50% Hispanic, not Indian. Okay, then. America is not named after no European. He changed his name to that. Thank you. Once again, you're proving that you are taking your biases and applying it to history because you want to prove some sort of narrative. The root word of America is Amir. No, the root word of America is Amerigo, which is anglicized from the Italian. So, by the way, the Native Americans did not call it America, did not recognize Amerigo Vespucci, and would never recognize a Moorish word. And the Berbers were and by the way, you talk about the Berbers, northwestern Africa. The Barbary pirates were the first people that the United States ever had a military conflict with in the early 1800s under Thomas Jefferson, before the War of 1812 even. The United States fought the Barbary pirates. So the United States didn't have the best of relations with Berber peoples from northwestern Africa. Let me see. Isn't First Nations one of those wokey buzzwords? I mean, if you want to say it is, but First Nations, I actually like the term. It's the Aboriginal people of Canada. Aborigines are the natives of Australia, but Aboriginal has been used as a broad brush term to refer to natives of different areas, be they in Africa, North or South America, or in the East Indies in Australia. I love the knowledge. Do you think North America thank you, Gregory. Do you think North America was inhabited by people that shared a language before the Tower of Babylon? I don't know. You're talking about the Tower of Babel in the Bible. I can't speculate if that's true or not. A megalith, a ziggurat-like megalith temple where people thought they were ascending and getting close to God. That's in every single civilization. Machu Picchu is built on the hills because they wanted to be close to their gods. Gothic cathedrals in Europe are built so big so that they can go towards God. Greek temples are built on steeples so that they can be closer to the gods. This is just how people culturally understand their relationship to the gods. They don't understand the scientific parameters of the fact that they would have gone into orbit into outer space. They believe that the gods are above them, so they have to get higher. Reaching higher ground means you are above someone else. I don't know if there's any truth to it. Native Americans are not Aborigines here in America. Most of them are Asian, not Americans. By that definition, there are no Native Americans. The Native Americans were here for thousands of years before a white person ever showed up, thousands of years before a black person ever showed up, thousands of years before a Moroccan ever showed up. in what point does someone become native? Just because they were at one point itinerant and came from another area, I don't think that necessarily precludes them from being natives. Native Americans was a word invented by Jews in the 1970s. It's an easy term to use. But you also use the American Indian. Red Indian is far more derogatory and pejorative. Indian is not based on the idea, by the way, that Columbus believed he was in India. That's also untrue. Indian is, he called them un gente, un dios, indios, Indian, in God, a people in God. So the indigenous, so that's obviously the basis of the term indigenous. It actually does not have to do with the Columbian misunderstanding that he was in India and not America. They didn't call India India back then. They called it Hindustan, the land of the Hindus. Yeah. So one way was very cold, and one way was very hot. Fair point. Auslander proof. What do you mean by that? What about Auslander? How close were we all to speaking French? I mean, the French conquered England in 1066 under William the Conqueror, if that's what you're referring to. If you're talking about the 7 Years' War, or what I call World War I, the French were very close to winning that conflict in what's called the the French Indian Wars. They were going to use, them and their Indian allies had the advantages against the British on several occasions, but the help of the 13 colonies and Britain's continual naval power eventually allowed the British to win, which would eventually force them to tax their colonies, which would eventually lead to the American Revolution. This is 1754 to 1763, by the way. In a simple term, why did the First World War happen? The First World War is the 7 Years' War for me on this channel, and Hars, if you could put the video in the chat that explains it, that'd be great. And also put the video about what he's calling about the Great War, World War II, or World War I, whatever you want to call it. The First World War, if you're referring to the conflict between 1914 and 1918, happened because of a domino effect wherein the Austro-Hungarians demanded reparations from Serbia because of the murder of the heir to their throne. The Serbians refused. The Austro-Hungarians invaded. They knew this would bring the Russians into the war, but the Germans had promised to have their back, so Austria-Hungary and Germany went to war with Serbia and Russia. Russia had an alliance with France. Germany knew this. Germany went to war with France in violating Belgian neutrality by going through Belgium to attack France. They brought Britain into the conflict to help the French and the Russians. So you have Britain, France, and Russia fighting a two-front war against the Germans and Austro-Hungarians. A year later, Italy will abandon their alliance with the Germans in order to help the British and the French. And in 1917, continual agitation from sinking ships and a covert operation to try to get Mexico to attack America will basically give Germany, will bring America into the war, which will be somewhat the turning point. So why did it happen? Basically, people wanting to massage their egos, extract land and power from smaller countries, and continue to expand their empires, because empires always expand. Whether it's the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which was very landlocked and weak compared to France or Britain's empire, or the Russian Empire, which is the largest in the world, but badly technologically inferior during that war, which of course leads to the Russian Revolution. Hars, can you put the video I made just a few days ago on the Russian Revolution? I really, really like that video. There will be no boots in the ground in Venezuela. We'll see. It would be nice if that didn't happen, but we will see. Let me see. Anunnaki versus Anasazi. These are different legends of giants and alien star creatures visiting star beings, powerful beings visiting. The Anunnaki are in Assyria, the ancient Assyrians, and the Anasazi were the Navajo legends of aliens and stuff like that. Why is Basque culture prominent in Mexico? Probably because of its connections to Spain, but I don't know more than that. There are different points in history where immigrants from Europe did end up in Mexico and Argentina and Brazil rather than going to the United States. I can swim, by the way. No, it's not. No, it's the truth, not biased. Yes, there is no truth in anything you have said, so there you go. What do you think about the Richard America theory? Italian Welsh link. The theory that claims the name comes from Richard the Amharic, or a wealthy Welsh merchant in Bristol who financed the 1497 journey. I can't see what else you wrote. But yeah, I don't know. I go with the general theory of Amerigo Vespucci. The United States, no Europeans. We Aborigines of America have a nationality. I'm sorry, but if you're referring to Africans, the first Africans came to the United States, at least the British colonies that become the United States, in 1619. Sorry, bud. Before that, you can maybe talk about the Spanish in Florida, I guess. Let me see. It's not Native America. There's holes in the narrative of Columbus and the Vikings being the first Europeans, Caucasians in the Americas. The Vikings probably were the first. But I'd like to know what these holes are. Let me see. Friendly history. It's all right to judge from your opinion facts that stand out, but in a serious discussion, you have to think in a similar way to me. But the facts and categories get the truth. Judge that. No, I don't have to think like you do. Well, there's no guarantee that any of those tribes were the first in America. The field of Paleo-American archaeology is pretty insipid. Well, it's not very well developed. There's a lot of speculation, just like there is in ancient history. You don't have written records, so you have a conclusions based on general evidence that is found. So when people analyze ancient history, prehistory, what they will do is they'll say, well, there's these metals in this city, but also in this city. So there's probably trade going on between these cities. And there's evidence of weapons found in this city, but not and in this city. So maybe these people were the same, were allies, or one conquered the other. There's a lot of guesswork that goes into it. Columbus was a Jew, and Spain expelled their Jews in 1492. It is true that he was a Jew, but nobody knew he was a Jew. Many of the Spanish people were baptized Christians, even if they had Jewish blood in them. And Columbus was extremely devout. He would not have liked being called a Jew. Let me see here. Why did black people never domesticate elephants? That's interesting. That's a good question. African elephants are bigger, and I don't think as close to civilization as the Indian elephants. India is also more densely populated than Africa. They did in some ways. I mean, the Carthaginians, who are not really Africans, but on the continent at least, technically, I mean, they were using them in warfare. The Greeks used them. The Egyptians used them in warfare. So it's not fully non-domesticated, but I mean, I guess I get what you're saying. Native American is a blanket term. That's true. So let me see. Also, let me see. Yeah, the Jews didn't coin the term. Native American is a blanket term. When did people first start wearing ties? So that's a great question because I love ties. I love wearing ties. I love the decor around them. This is not a black tie. It's a navy blue tie, but so stop calling me a brown shirt in the chat. But basically, the Native Americans, when people first start wearing ties, there were bow ties. There were formal neckwear. There were kerchiefs and ascots and cravats and stuff like this, kind of the formal menswear you'll see once in a great while nowadays. But they are usually used we start seeing them more in the 17th, 18th century. There was cuffs. If you look at Shakespeare, even he wore those. So there's different types of neckwear for men, cuffs and collars and things like that. And then how to decorate that and when you get collared shirts, you need to find a way to decorate them. And bow ties and different types of ties. There's very thin ties you've probably seen before. And eventually the necktie becomes predominant in the late 19th and early 20th century. One second, please. Okay, sorry for the interruption. Lactose intolerance and DNA was proof of people settled from China, right? I don't know enough about that, I guess. Let me see, going through the chat. Never seen any actual backing for the Indios thing. The Spanish would have been Indios, just like modern Spanish. That can be, just because the E isn't used in English, in is obviously used with an I, and so it's just a translation. So you get translation, and we're using the term Indian and indigenous. These are English translations. These are English words. So, you live in the city where Bonifacius was murdered. Do you know where I live now? No. If the Apache, call them Apache. Yes, but but that's not specific enough. Well, in fact, many of the terms of the different nations, like calling an Indian a Sioux, is not specific enough because there's various tribes within that. So even the nation of naming the Native American nation can be not specific or be a generality. No humans call themselves Native Asians or Native Africans, so why do people use the term Native Americans? To distinguish them from people from the United States of America. That is a great question, though. There's only one race, the human race. Every nation has suffered slavery. That's true. That's very true. I am Obijwe. We fought with the French. See, there you go. Let me see here. They are the first peoples in the United States. The small hat tribe started World War I and every war after that. Yes, clearly they did. There's no historical evidence for any of this, but hey, it's YouTube, and it's talking about history and social studies like we do here all the time. And there's always got to be somebody who has to bring up the little hat people because you guys are more obsessed with it than the little hat people are with themselves. So, and there's the 7 Years' War and the Great War. You can learn about the history of Veterans Day by watching those videos. Yes. No troll, just asking questions to see if people tell the truth or the same old lies. I'm not telling any lies, at least not deliberately. The Argentinians can't win a war. Discuss. I don't know. We'll see. I can't think of the last time they were in a war. Obviously, the Falklands, they didn't win that. Can you recall a war that ever, but the collective people of a country wanted to happen? The Great War might be a good example of that. War is a terrible thing, and war means the death of the lower classes, and for people, it means untold amounts of suffering for the common population. By privation, death, fighting in wars, the loss of husbands and brothers and sons, the destruction of the family. There is so much that war risks that I can't think of any time in history where everybody has been pro-war. But pro-war sentiment has been, and patriotism and nationalism and even a religious connection to it has been something that has been used to justify and glorify war and fool the masses many times. So, thanks for I don't know the better name for, what is the Berber word for Morocco? Yes, you've already told me that. Yes. Some words sound the same, even if they're in different language. The Chinese word for chocolate is chocolat. The Russians being briefly involved in the American Civil War, I thought was a neat fact. They tried to help the Union. Alexander II loved Abraham Lincoln and loved freeing people because he had freed the serfs. So, anyways, going through the chat. Do you know Bering Strait theory? Yes, I do. Over 75% of slaves purchased from Africa went to non-white, non-English speaking countries. They went to Latin and South America, a lot of them. More of them went to Latin and South America than they did to the United States and Canada. If you're talking about English speaking, many of the slaves went to the Middle East or to other African countries. That's very true. But if Western would refer, Latin American countries would be Western. Is AI based on you? I'd be honored to think that. People think when I'm actually talking extemporaneously and just have I'm eloquent enough to have all of my points in order and I'm able to make clear, specific statements, they think that I'm using AI. They think that I'm reading from a script. I've never used a script. I've never used AI. I've used a script on maybe 2 or 3 long-form videos, and I've made dozens of those. I've never used a script for a short-term video. Never. I've planned out what I'm going to say, but that's about it. I just use the same thing that I have and use for remembering all of this, my mind. Let me see. Who runs big tech, G-Man? I don't know. Oh, for goodness sake, Auslander. Was Charles XII a bad king? No, the Swedish King Charles XII was very successful, great general, great leader. The Swedish were very powerful in the Baltic and in Eastern Europe and Northern Europe during the 17th and early 18th centuries. He just ran into somebody who was historically legendary, and that's Peter the Great. When you have a good king and ruler who runs into a legend, you're going to have a problem. Pompey was a great general, but he ran into Julius Caesar. And of course, Charles XII reached his demise at Poltava, and Peter the Great just whipped the Swedish in that war. So there's a lot of belief that Japanese were here long before Jesus Christ. The Japanese were in Japan. Yes, yes, Japanese, Chinese civilization. Most civilizations have existed before Jesus of Nazareth. I love big women, and big women love the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel. Blacks didn't have a concept of the wheel before the arrival of the Europeans. That's not true. The Native Americans, some of them did not. So friendly history, are you okay just staying as a pluralist relativist? On what? On what issue? I'm not relativistic. History is not relative. Okay, I don't know what you're saying more. I don't even follow you anymore. The whole historiography of the Columbus narrative is mostly fragmentary if you look at the reception of the documents involved, like Columbus never being able to produce the maps he claimed he made. That's true. That sounds like something Columbus would do. Why do you think people are so intrigued by the architecture of the pyramids in Africa? I don't understand what's baffling about people stacking bricks. They think that because it's so complex and see, this is based on a historical bias of presentism. Presentism, I think, is one of the most dangerous and prolific theories and ideas in social sciences in the world today. And it's the idea that we in the present have it figured out, and people in the past were basically more or less stupid, and maybe some of them were smart, but they weren't smart as we are, and they didn't think like we did, and we've become so advanced that we are ahead of them. So we could build the pyramids because we're that brilliant, but they certainly couldn't because they were rustic primitives. Lack of technology does not mean lack of intelligence or ingenuity. The fact of the matter is the architecture for the pyramids, the geometric patterns, all of the consistency, and parallelism in the nature of the pyramids that is just so brilliantly done. It could easily have been produced by the Egyptians with a large working force, probably mostly of slaves, in the Old Kingdom under Khufu and rulers like that. The problem is that us in the modern sense, we think that we know better than they do and that they were relatively stupid, so how could they ever build it? It must be aliens. And it's not. It really isn't. There you go. So, let me see. If you read Columbus logs that he wrote, find out what he really called the Aborigines here, not Indian. That was a trick. Yeah, that's not a trick. Because friendly history, you can't ignore standards. You need standards in serious topics, not just talking from vibes. I'm not just talking from vibes. I love how my moderator wants to argue with me. And this is the stream. You should read the history of Codex Giga. Is very interesting. I love it. I've heard that before. I should read that. Saying the pyramids are African is like saying Timtichuk in Eastern Russia is European. Yeah, it's not quite the same. There's the report that Cieza de Leon wrote in his chronicles after the Chapayoya tribes, who he described as fair and bearded men like Caucasians. Thank you for your subscription. Can you tell me anything about the founding of South Africa? Seems very confusing. Zulus, Dutch, British. Well, the founding of any African nation in relation to where it is now prior to the Europeans is going to be confusing because the Europeans divided up the area based off of what they thought they wanted. But the real truth of the matter is, what on earth? The Zulus were one group of migratory peoples who spoke, I'm trying to remember the dialect. It's not Congolese. But they were one group of many different peoples who migrated around Africa. Speaking Swahili is a derivative of this language, and they eventually settled in there, and they really kind of in the 17th and 18th centuries kind of created kingdom in large sections of what is now South Africa. And then, of course, the Dutch settle the Dutch Free State, which is eventually runs into trouble with the English, leading to the several Boer Wars. The British colonize for quite some time. They leave. The Dutch government that has the power given to them creates an apartheid state where the Africans are discriminated against, and eventually the Africans win majority rule in the 1990s. Nelson Mandela and all that. What do you know about the 6,000-year-old white European mummies found in that Chinese desert? Not much. What is your nationality? Please don't say white or American. I'm an American. I'm from the United States. I am an American. I don't say more than that. You can take a guess if you want on my ethnicity. And the question remains of where the Toltecs got their concept of Caucasian-looking men like Quetzalcoatl and the Mayan Vulcan. It's not horribly impossible for them to think of somebody having lighter skin. Just like they were it's not impossible for them to think that. There are legends. If the Vikings did indeed come to the New World in the 11th century, it is very possible, but legends and rumors have passed down to these people through the centuries after that. By the time the Spanish arrived, they did have some sort of concept of someone having fair skin, but it seemed to them to be more like a legend than actual history. That would work history becomes legend, legend becomes myth, as the Lord of the Rings teaches us. So, do you have a Twitter? I have an X account. Hearts can put it in the chat. Plus, the dishonest way in which the Mexican Institutional Archaeology handles find. They have entire warehouses of uncategorized artifacts. So do most countries in the world, by the way. Human remains that they refuse to make it available. The American government has done the same thing with the bones of supposed giants. What about George Washington's letter to the Emperor of the Moroccan Empire, thanking them for letting Europeans do business under the United States, share his dominion? That's nice. And Morocco still has nothing to do with the United States. Make you a mod. Why would we make you a mod? Long time. Great to have you, Epiphany. Do you know what that word means? Yeah, I know what a dominion is. Yes, I understand completely. And dominions can involve mercantile enterprises and trade as much as it can involve land. Grow up. But if we aren't thinking about history the same or viewing history through the same lens, that doesn't mean I'm a jingoist. Yes, you are a jingoist. I'm going to move on. What was the motive of Israel supporting Argentina in the Falkland War covertly? I don't know. That's kind of strange. They would usually support the Western country. Not sure. Maybe some payback to the British but the British and the Israelis had fought with each other at Suez, so I don't know. Wars are started by old rich people. They make poor people sacrifice other poor people. That's a very Marxian interpretation of it. Wars are started by people who are not going to lose as much from the war as the people who will die on the front lines. However, of course, Hitler died in war. Napoleon lost everything and was banished. People do risk and lose a lot in war, even the most powerful people. It's not as easy as a Marxian dialectic where it's the lower class dying for the upper class. So this is the Wounded Knee Massacre. And maybe, Auslander, this is where the whole Native American battle started. I don't know why the chat's been so crazy about that today, but this is the Wounded Knee Massacre of 1891, where the United States government killed hundreds of Sioux people, including dozens of women and children. Who's the most documented man in history? Well, nowadays, documentation is extreme, almost verifiable for almost every human being. That was almost impossible before photography. Pre-photography, in the ancient world, Julius Caesar, Jesus of Nazareth, Alexander the Great, Muhammad, all have pretty good documentation to their existence. Plato, Socrates. But in the modern, and Confucius, the modern world, again, pretty reliable documentation through primary sources and writings of different historical figures, and then you get photography, and it just exponentially, once again, because of technology, you're able to document people's existence. Yeah. Japanese people came here to this country to get copper and other things. They did not stay. I know of they were here before Jesus Christ. Oh, you're talking about in the United States? Oh, there's no evidence of that. I mean, yeah. I'm not. I mean, is it impossible that runestones and languages are somewhat similar? I think that what that proves, if you find runestones with what appear to be Japanese characters in California that could be thousands of years old, I think it much more likely proves the connectedness of human beings, that our languages can be the same, and that the Native Americans have some derivative association with East Asian peoples, and Polynesians and Micronesians. So, can you tell me about what happened at Pompeii and its rediscovery centuries later? Basically, people were buried in the dust that settled from the explosion of Vesuvius. I am not a brown shirt. Don't call me that. I am wearing a brown shirt. Where did I go to school? I'm not going to say, but I have a bachelor's and master's in history. White Europeans have been traveling to China for like 7,000 years. Not that long. I believe the Egyptians were way more advanced than people think. Yes, they were also just like us. They were just as intelligent and just as resourceful and just as adept and innovative as we were. The lack of technology, lack of iPhones didn't make them stupid. Presentism dies with the argument of the Egyptians building the pyramids. But because people have accepted presentism and want people in the past to be dumb so that they can be the smart, enlightened ones, or to make sense of their own worldview, then it has to be the aliens, or the Egyptians couldn't possibly have done this. Let me see. Keep going. I'm trying to catch up to the chat. If I haven't gotten your question, I promise I will. Imagine that thousands of years ago, the Egyptians understood high school mathematics. Well, I guess they'd be college mathematics. Now they got smart, we got dumb. In some ways, we're dumber. In some ways, we're smarter. Slaves did not build the pyramids in Egypt. They might have repaired them. The Egyptians were enslaving people as long as they existed. I haven't checked recently, but last time I checked, the Piri Reis map hasn't been proven to be fake. Neither the Urbano-Monti map showing the American and Asian territories with accurate names in the 1490s. Okay, but that, I don't know. Maybe. I'm not completely opposed to it. I'm not a relativist. So South Africa is not an African nation, but a European colony. South Africa is not a nationality. It's not. It is a nation. It's a nation that the Europeans divided, and it was divided, and different parts became different areas. You got Lesotho, you had Rhodesia, which later became Zimbabwe. These were all part of the larger British colony in South Africa. The Bantu. Thank you. Yes, it is the Bantu. Thank you. The Bantu peoples were the most common, once again, people named after their language, which is not uncommon in human history, like barbarian, bar, they would go. That's very common in history. just because we're very similar, regardless of when we live or where we live. History is all about setting, where and when something happens. What do you know about Samuel de Champlain? Built the first major city in Canada. I think he built Quebec. And one of the major explorers who helped the French chart a course through Canada and I think the Midwest in the late 16th century. I haven't heard of the mummies, but somebody mentioned them already. Um, so I'm not following your. I love this. You create a category of an aborigine to America is this person who looks like this and does this, and they are actually black people or whatever nonsensical idea you had, and therefore you aren't an American because you are not following these guys. Knock it off. I'm an American. I'm from the United States. Stop it. Um, so I don't know. Friendly history looks like it could be native to me. But yeah. South Africa just denied Elon Musk an interview, provider license just because he was white. Well, they're doing a lot of things to white people in South Africa. And there is the Twitter. Friendly high 16619. That's the X. He definitely is not native. He is of European lineage. Yes, which is fascinating because I never said I was native. I say I am an American. There's a difference. Here in Sweden, he's considered a bad king because he had the opportunity to make peace after Narva. It would be better for the Swedish people who were starving after all Charles' expensive campaigns. That's true. His ostentation was pretty well known. He felt himself just as good as Peter the Great, and he wasn't. But he was not a bad king. It's just he lost to a much better ruler. Why are Americans so bad at geography? The same reason they're bad at history. They don't watch this channel, first off, but they also choose to be willfully ignorant because they're prosperous and their country. America's geography allows it to be stupid because Americans to be ignorant of it. Because America it doesn't understand how countries that are close together work, like France and Germany and Luxembourg and Switzerland. But the United States is a country where it's almost like states and provinces. And it is so big and so vast that it doesn't really think about geography the way Europeans do. Europeans are much more educated on geography and how geography works because they're much closer together. They also learn languages much more commonly because of that. The Israelis had a terror bombing campaign against England before, during, and after World War II. Okay, that isn't true, but are you sure Hitler died and didn't go to South America? Yeah, I'm sure he died. The Jews wanted peace in Argentina in case they wanted to try and use it for the Andrian plan. What is the Andania plan? Is that a fleeing Israel plan? And there's Harry. Finally, we got both moderators here. Why do most people around the world base Americans off of reels they have seen? Same reason that Americans make stereotypes off of other people in the world off of reels they have seen. And by the way, white people have been doing that for a long time. It's just they were the first ones to do it because of the technological ability to go to other countries and stereotype them. What was going on in the Balkans region, Aegean area prior to Alexander the Great? You have the Thracians, who were a very vicious, warlike people. You have the Macedonians, who were considered northern barbarians by the Greeks, and of course you have Greece being divided into various city-states. I don't know a huge amount. There was rumors of ancient legendary people who were giants who rode horses called the Scythians, and a lot of people have them in ancient Russia, where horses were first domesticated, by the way. So, what would you like to leave behind as part of your own history for your friends and family to remember? This, showing the power of learning and showing the love of your passion and what it can do for you and for other people. That's what I want to leave behind. This is my legacy. This will, assuming that technology continues and the world continues generally the same and people are able to access information and I don't get censored and canceled, so maybe not so much. I want people to be able to see this. But very sweet question. Most people here in America are bad with geography due to the founding of the schooling system here in America ran by the Rockefeller. Yes, the Rockefellers are bad. Yes, the Rockefeller. I love it. Rockefellers, who donate so much money to charity, it's not even funny how much they've given to charity. The Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, and the Jews. That's who everybody wants to blame. And yeah, they did stuff that a lot of people don't like, especially people on the right. I don't care. I know more about history than most of these people who are complaining do. So you are not open to using my lens of viewing history, all in regards to the War of 1812, Wilson Polk, so you label my motives and intentions to justify not talking to me. No, I've talked to you ad nauseum about this over and over again. I don't agree with a lot of it, and you just continue to demand that I talk to you about it. So I don't agree with your lens. You're looking at the lens through cause and effect. The people in history who do things are doing things in a particular context. Cause and effect is important, but we also have to understand what actually are the facts. History is a science. So, What about those 6,000-year-old white European mummies found in the Chinese desert? Okay, people keep asking about this. I just don't know enough about it, so sorry. Uh, are there reptilians in deep caves? Sure. Um, why do they speak Dutch in South Africa? The Afrikaans, it's a derivative of the Dutch languages because the Dutch colonized there. That's why there's many people in New York who had Dutch lineage. Martin Van Buren and Theodore Roosevelt, and Franklin Roosevelt, three American presidents who had Dutch lineage because of a Dutch colonization. Yeah, it's Afrikaans. Let me see here. Are rappers the modern versions of minstrels? Interesting comparison, possibly. I've been interested in Charlemagne recently. Can you talk a bit about the political landscape of Europe in the 700s? Who were the Bretons, Basques, Lombards? These were various different tribes of people who had been, who were German. Many of them were Germanic. The Basque are not, but the Basque were settled eventually near the Pyrenees Mountains in northwestern Spain. They have a very different culture and language. I believe it was Charlemagne who helped put them there. But Charlemagne is basically just this king who's able to conquer all of these different peoples and give them some sort of um, dispensation where they are able to live in certain areas. Lombardy was northern Italy. They were attacking the Pope. Charlemagne comes to the rescue of the Pope and absorbs that land into his empire. When he dies, he divides the land between his three sons, which destabilizes the entire area. So instead of one big giant French or German empire, you have a series of kingdoms that are then splintered even more. One of them develops into the Holy Roman Empire. One of them develops into France. The third one kind of goes the way of the dodo bird. And you have these people who are kind of incorporated into the larger Holy Roman Empire that kind of becomes the center of Germany and Austria during the medieval period. Let me see. Any kind of history. Irish breakfast, you can ask me about any kind of history, including the history of Irish breakfast, which I don't know a lot about, but I do know a lot about Ireland. Still think Islam has beauty. You know the ones that prescribe a divorce waiting period for minors? I think that Islam has beauty. This is like when people come onto the channel. People are always asking me about this. They're always doing the whataboutism. Oh, this religion has this bad thing about it. So why do you call it a religion of beauty? Because people have found it beautiful through the centuries. And in history, there are many beautiful things about the different religions in history. There's art, there's progress, there's social changes, there's all sorts of things that religions have contributed to the world that need to be acknowledged as beautiful. That doesn't make one religion particularly true or potentially more right than other religions, but it does speak to the fact that religion is important in the development of not only societies but history over time. So you do have this is like people who come in and say, oh, the Talmud says that Jesus is burning in excrement in hell, so how could Christians ever support the Jews? It's a whataboutism on a gotcha point. It's a minor issue that when I look at Islam and I look at its basic teaching, do Muslims generally follow this? Some of them do, and that's pretty awful. Do Jews generally follow that Talmudic commentary? No. Do Christians follow the demands of the Old Testament to basically destroy entire groups of people, men, women, and children? No. I can separate certain particular cultural contexts and verses and I have to do it for all religions to be a fair social scientist. I think there is beauty in Islam. I think there's beauty in almost all religions. There's a lot of art, culture, invention, discovery in the bosom of these different religions at different times and periods, like the Islamic Golden Age. Do you know about Simon of Trent? No, I do not. He built Quebec. There you go. And the Montagnans, Algonquins, Irons. Yep, we're killing and enslaving everyone from upstate New York to Quebec. Interesting. Thank you. He saved them from that. Did they convert to Catholicism? Was it a religious salvation that you're referring to, or was it more a political one? Debating to a standard is pointless, and especially if you're debating a war, you don't actually care what happened in the war or in the peace treaty. Friendly history. I'm trying to explain one history. Why are my moderators arguing with me? Why don't they do their jobs? Is Putin a victim of his own Russian propaganda or purposely destroying Russia or got in over his head and can't stop? All of the above. Let me see here. A standard is the lens you use to interpret facts. Facts answer what happens. Standards answer what matters and how we judge outcomes. Yes, that is where the debates in history lie. The debates in history lie not in the facts, but the way we interpret those facts. And by the way, we are almost at an hour, so we're almost done. So if you haven't liked and subscribed, please do so. I'm going to try to catch up to the chat if I can. Do you think that there are giants in the Appalachians? There's rumors of giants all throughout all of human history in all different parts of the world. I have no idea. Why did not the New Sweden province in America work out? I don't know why New Sweden was the Swedish attempt to colonize. Sweden was waning in power and influence, and really just couldn't make it up. Couldn't compete at the same level. They're farther away than the English and the French and the Dutch. And I believe that was in New Jersey, modern day New Jersey. And that's why there are plenty of Swedish and Nordic peoples who settle in America in that area. Maximilian I of Mexico. Why? Go watch my video on that, Chente, because I do an entire explanation of Napoleon III wanting to create a pseudo Habsburg state that would have a lot of French connections, and how the French went and fought, and that's where Cinco de Mayo comes from in the United States. It's a mustard color, really. So, do you think it's possible that Man in the Iron Mask could have been the twin brother of King Louis XIV? Possibly. I don't know. What is your opinion on epic rap battles? I really haven't listened to them. I've listened to like a couple of them just passingly, never as an actual. I should do reaction videos. Now that I have a laptop, I can do those again. By the way, the money you give to this channel goes into the channel. But the truth of the matter is, I'm really not listening to them in a critical analysis. I should do a reaction video. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Did you need to get the Discord on because it came pretty dead? Only 4 of us talk on it. It'd be nice if people could join us on Discord. Harsh, put the link to the Discord in the chat. Also, cause and effect explains what happens, so you can't make it a cause and effect versus meaning because it's a false spear. Okay, then. Have you ever seen a pre-Schofield Bible? Like, I've seen a Gutenberg Bible. Why are you dressed like a brown shirt? I ain't hating the fit. It's hard, but it's funny. It's not intentional to dress like this and stream on YouTube. I am not a Nazi. I hate Nazis. Go watch my live stream lecture from last Sunday, which we do every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Everything's Eastern Standard Time, by the way. But Dingus, you are just because somebody's wearing a brown shirt doesn't make them Hitler. Standards explain how we judge what happened. I think we need to do real history. Removing one doesn't make history more factual. It makes it more incomplete. I have standards too to judge how historical things happen. My standards don't line up with your standards. I'm sorry. You're not winning this. I'm going to change your mind by saying that you don't know how to argue history and then lecture me about it. That's not going to change my mind about the War of 1812. Is there a connection between today's Iranians to the ancient Medes? A little bit, but these are various different peoples who lived in Persia, and the Iranians do not refer to all the Persian people. There are more Persians than just in Iran, or Iran is bigger than just the Persian people. Most famous case of Jews ritualistically sacrificing Gentile children. Yes, Jews did bad things. Wow, what a surprise. Move on. So did every other group in history. How did you remember January 6th? Oh, for goodness sake. 5-year anniversary of the storming of the Capitol. I remembered it by going to work and doing my usual thing and making content for this channel. It's not a big deal to me. It's an important historical event. I made a video about it. You can watch it. I'm not undermining what happened that day. I'm just saying I'm not dying to focus on it. I'm focused on getting this channel to a point where this is the only thing that I have to do. We are nearly 2 years into this. Our 2-year anniversary will be in February. Do you know what the Hagan and Irgun groups are? No. Does the USA essentially run South America because of Monroe Doctrine and Roosevelt Corollary? They say they don't, but they try to all the time. There's a lot of unofficial control. Talk about the Balkans. What do you want to know about it? The Balkans is southeastern Europe. It's a peninsula. It's been divided and unified under different masks like Yugoslavia or the Austro-Hungarians. It was controlled by the Ottomans for a long time, gained its independence. The eastward countries in there are closer to Russia in a lot of their cultural apparatuses. There's many different Slavic peoples, so you got different groups of people, different language groups. They are all kind of divided and don't really get along for the most part. And they have a lot of animosity for the Turks because of the Ottoman Empire controlling them and forcing Islam onto them, or trying to in many cases. So the Balkans are so extensive, I can't just sum up everything I know about them just in one statement like that. Let me see. Is Greenland considering America a werewolf? I don't know. We'll see what happens with Greenland. I don't know if the United States will be able to buy Greenland. I don't see military action ever being used to take Greenland, but the United States taking things or buying them is not uncommon in history. That doesn't make it okay. I'm just saying it's not uncommon. And there's the Discord, by the way. We're going to push the Discord today, so I'm going to replace the pinned message. You can follow us on the Discord, and we've got discussions there. We've got more in-depth stuff there that we don't have here, and hopefully we'll be doing a debate that will eventually lead to getting it streamed here. I don't want a Trump loincloth. That's very funny. That's not what I said. That's a subtle shift to make it sound like interpretation is the same as judging outcomes. When in framework, judging outcomes comes after categorizing facts, not before. Yes, I categorize facts and I judge outcomes. So, This is the whole, you are overcomplicating an on-serious issue. The War of 1812, the British won it and the Americans didn't suffer heavily. You can't understand that the British didn't make the Americans suffer, so therefore the Americans didn't lose the war. You have to make that leap in logic. And it is a leap in logic because it is common that countries make other countries pay or suffer after they lose a war. But Britain didn't think it was necessary to make the Americans suffer and didn't see the need to fight the war anymore. The war was fought because of the impressment of sailors by the British. The Americans lost. Their capital was burned. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that to you before, if you even care about that. But the United States sued for peace, which was what losers do, by the way, negotiated peace again, and the British basically gave them a slap on the wrist and let them go. And the main reason was the reason for fighting the war was over. The impressment of sailors was no longer necessary because there wasn't a bunch of fighting on the high seas against the ships of Napoleon. So, I wish YouTube would let you click on links. It should. I don't know if it, but it won't. I hope you're doing well too, Joe. Great to see you. Both some were established trade relations. I was converted. We always had good relations with the natives because of them compared to the English. Yes, the French had much better relations with the natives than the English, which is why a lot of them fought for the French in the French-Indian War of 1754 to 1763, which is the North American side of the French-Indian War. Here's another question to test your truthfulness. Is Europe a continent? It would seem that way. Yes, Europe is a continent. I know you don't believe that, and you're going to have some sort of ridiculous explanation as to why it's not, but Europe is a continent. By almost every metric that we understand Europe, Europe is a continent. Now, Europe is the smallest continent other than Australia. It is connected to Asia. If you were to measure it around, Asia would really be one big supercontinent, but the demarcation points in Russia and the Ural Mountains, as well as the Mediterranean Sea, and the Dardanelles in that area, the Bosphorus, those all kind of have culturally, geographically, and historically separated Europe from Asia. The Hagian and Irgun and another group were Jewish territory groups I referenced with the terror bombing campaign in an early comment. They were later absorbed into the IDF. Interesting. Yes, the Israelis did terrorist actions in the Mandate of Palestine. I'm aware of that. So, the lion does not concern himself with whatever dumb Europeans think. Sounds about right. How about a free Camelite? Oh, for goodness sakes. Wayne, calm down. Stop screaming your comments. Trump wants to leave NATO, so taking Greenland is the solution. He basically burned NATO to the ground. That's what the Danes promised. We'll see. You have to seriously stop this bad faith, disingenuous portion of history. I'm explaining your method of historical analysis. You're accusing me of telling you that you don't know how to argue history, which is never said, then saying I'm lecturing you, I'm sharing my lens. Your lens is basically, because I don't analyze history the way you do, I am incorrect. I do not analyze history the way you do. That doesn't make me incorrect. Europe is a war zone in the Sharia. I don't know what that means. There's only been one country in history to control an entire continent, and it still exists. What country is it? One country in history to control an entire continent, and it still exists. Well, Australia. Oh, but conquer? Britain. Britain conquers Australia, I guess, is the one I'm going with. I don't know what you mean. You might be misunderstanding or misremembering, not necessarily bad faith. I'm not misunderstanding or misremembering. I don't know what I am misremembering. Yeah, Australia. That's what I said. Yes, of course Africa is. Everything is part of Asia. Yes, you know what? Let's just bring it back Pangea. You have the Bering Strait, there's North America and South America hooked on to Asia. Forget continental drift, forget science. We beat Venezuela in less than 4 hours. I'm not worried about a country less than half their size. Oh, for goodness sakes. But the Americans did give the Brits a Parthian shot during the Battle of New Orleans. Yes, the Americans had several victories against the British in the War of 1812. Victory doesn't mean total annihilation. That you said that I don't know what you mean, G-Man. Yeah, just tell the truth. That is not opinion. It is not an opinion because it is nonsense. Opinions can be nonsense, but I don't want to insult opinions by saying that's an opinion. It's nonsense. No offense to you, Moorish. You seem like you know a lot, but you are just doggedly stubborn. So, but you said that he said that you don't know how to argue. Okay, maybe he didn't say that I don't know how to argue. I'm saying that I don't know what his point is. He has a different method of interpreting history than me. Okay. What extent did the CSA source equipment from other countries? They wanted to get Britain and France to approve of him. I don't know how much they sourced from other countries. Do you have a theory around the Devil's Bible? Nothing, just a typo. The Battle of New Orleans was pointless. The peace had already been signed and achieved nothing. Yes, this is where Harry goes over the top because he's a Brit and he has to, in his own jingoism, defend the British no matter what. The Americans won a victory at the Battle of New Orleans on January 9th, January 8th, 1815. And I do daily today in history, die today, born today videos if you're new to the channel. Andrew Jackson becomes a national hero. That changes American history. New Orleans is not insignificant, especially from an American perspective. It is quite amazing the Americans, with a much smaller army, were able to beat back a much larger British force. That doesn't change the fact that the war had already ended. The Americans had sued for peace. The person who sued for peace loses the war. America lost the war, didn't get punished by the British, and over time grew and prospered. Wow. The South grew and prospered after the 1860s. That doesn't mean they didn't lose the war. Countries can grow and prosper even with losing a war. Well, I'm glad that you're a free-thinking mind and that you have a particular way of looking at things. But I accept the official categorization of Europe as a continent. Yes, I can get aggravated. I'm not just going to be dismissive and rude about it. And people are aggravating. People are rage baiting all the time. No country is safe as long as Trump is in power. What he did in Venezuela is illegal and will lead to more kidnapping. Sure, okay, then you've made your point. What does that have to do with history? Andrew Jackson's real nickname was Old Hickory. Hickory is a very hard wood. Yeah, he was tough and stubborn. I'm not blinking right now, am I? So, I'm going to go blink free for the last minute and tell you to like and subscribe, become a friendly neighborhood historian, down the mighty Mississippi. Oh, but is that a song? And why did Stalin take the name Stalin? Man of truth. Stalin means stealer. Man of truth. Or, sorry, not man of truth. Man of steel. Man of steel. Try not to blink. Anyways, so please like and subscribe. Become a friendly neighborhood historian. It's as easy as that. We are over 70 minutes. I went over just to help you guys. I appreciate Harsh and Harry for moderating and all of the great stuff that they do. Have you read Doctrine and Philosophy of Fascism by Gentile and Mussolini Intellectual by Grigor? No, but I should. I will be live again tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern to answer all of your questions. Please like and subscribe on your way out. And you can get more questions, join more discussions, and we can talk about other stuff tomorrow. I'm exhausted, but this was fun. I enjoyed it. Please show some love to Harry and Harsh and all they do. Follow us on the Discord for more discussions. And become a friendly neighborhood historian. And if you want to become a member and have that be part of it, you certainly can. The next stream is tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern for the Q&A, and then Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern, you can vote here exclusively on YouTube for our live stream lecture. Take care. Have a great night. Enjoy the beginning of your weekend. Use some of your knowledge you learned tonight to impress the ladies at the bar or whatever you need to do with it. Is there such a thing as right versus left? How do logical people deal with it? Extremism leads to horseshoe theory, and I've kind of accepted horseshoe theory. So they proved they were socialists. There's a lot of horseshoeing going along with the fascists, Alex. But I think you're right about a lot of that. Okay. Take care. Have a great night. And remember, as always, love history. Bye-bye now.